Good evening and welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Life Stories of Faith and Hope. I'm Reverend Matt Taylor.
And I'm Reverend Abby Rhodes.
Look, we got it right this week. Fantastic.
Yay!
I hope you're enjoying these as much as we're enjoying doing them. Can I suggest right now, if you've got somebody you think I want to share this with, share it on their page right now so they can hear this story from our guest today, because it's a great story of faith and hope. So that seems a really good thing for us to do. Actually, if this is your first time you've been with us, essentially these are stories of members of our congregation, or members of our community here, telling a life moment that really changed for them, and for each person it's been slightly different. And our guest tonight is no different in that. So I'd like to introduce you to Richard Morris, who's with us right now. Here he is. There's Richard. And Richard even has his own little name plaque. So there we go.
I think you're the first to get your own name, Richard. That's impressive. That's an honour, that is. Kate and Godfrey didn't get that.
And that's right. And I have to say as well, Richard was on the panel who interviewed me. So if you don't like what you see, it's
and me, actually.
Oh yes,
and me.
And so so there you go.
It's all your fault, Richard. Yeah. All your fault.
So do comment and leave your reactions to anything that's being said. That would be great, particularly if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask of Richard or of us this evening. But without any more ado, really, I really want to crack on into Richard's story. And I know a little bit about it, Richard. You've shared something of it to us already, of course, but I really want to start back with some of that interesting past you have. I know we're going to talk about a specific incident, but it's good to give some background and colour. Your grandfather was a Jewish preacher, is that right? A Jewish preacher?
Yes. He was a part-time milkman, and we're not quite sure whether he was milking cows or delivering the bottles or whatever it was. So that was part of his time, and the other time he was a preacher, and he was a Jew. So he would go around and I don't know whether he had his own synagogue or what, but he certainly spoke about his faith.
And your other grandfather as well, I think, had a connection with church as well.
David Morris worked in Ebervale, and we know that he worked with pit ponies. We're not quite sure what he did, whether he was a vet or what, but his other passion was preaching. So he was a nonconformist preacher, and he used to travel up and down the valleys of South Wales, and when he got an audience, he would go and preach.
So maybe even, who knows, the times of the Welsh revival, that might be the kind of timings, possibly. Who knows? However, having said all that, your parents were significantly different. Is that the case?
Yes, absolutely. I can only say that they were both very hardened, certain atheists. My father had experienced the Second World War. He'd been in North Africa and in Italy, and the view of his view of religion was very much coloured by the Pope at the time, and there was that sense of appeasement, of not speaking out against fascism and what the German Nazis were doing across Europe. So that very much coloured his view of Christianity and of Catholicism. My mother, I don't know why, but she absolutely loathed Christianity. And any chance she got to say something profane and nasty, she would.
Okay.
That wasn't limited to Christianity. She was one of those people who could wind you up very easily.
So really, that whole background, you were birthed in that kind of I don't want to say ideology, but kind of background as you grew up. And although is it right you asked for a Bible when you were 9 or
9 years old? Yes. I was at primary school, and it was my birthday was coming up, and my parents said, well, "What would you like?" And I said, "I'd like a Bible."
Do you
And they
know?
were.
Can you remember why?
I think we'd been doing RE, religious
Okay.
education, and our teacher had said it'd be really good if you got a Bible. So it was getting close to my birthday. My parents said, "What would you like?" And I said, "I'd like a Bible, please." And they were really canny. They got me a Bible because they knew that I would never open them and live
I have to say it's quite unusual. I'm trying to think of a 11-year-old today who's saying, "Do you know what I'd really like?
9-year-old.
Forget 9-year-old. Sorry, forget the console. Just get me a Bible." But
Yeah.
but that's great. And so, but that, you didn't read it. It didn't interest you. What happened after that, Richard? What was the pathway after that and into your life, really?
Well, I went through teens at school, got a place at Liverpool University, went up to Liverpool, and I have to say, I think I had a wasted first year, if not a whole 3 years at Liverpool. I was extremely, well, two things: very immature, and again, an influence from my parents. I was very arrogant. So I think people saw in me somebody who was a know-it-all, and very pushy, very opinionated, and yeah, if I could wipe it and do it again differently, I would love to. But there we are. I am who I am,
Yeah.
and I survived being an absolutely terrible teenager.
Well, a lot of us have got stories like that, haven't we, Richard?
Yeah.
I think one place or another. So really, by that time, you were kind of entrenched in that. You didn't even think about God, or didn't even come into your mind, or did you argue against Christians? What did you? Is that something you used to do, or?
I didn't. I did a lot of arguing. I was into demos. I remember standing on the steps of the American consulate in Liverpool, and burning the Stars and Stripes. That was one of my achievements.
Oh my goodness.
Okay,
What were
we'll
you
just move on from
What were
there.
you protesting about? Yeah. I would to ask the question.
So I was very political. Whenever there was a debate going, I would get stuck in and have a go at things. I think part of it was that I did a degree in politics and philosophy, and at that time, to even think of being a Christian, was just absurd. People would laugh at you if you had a religious belief. So I was very much encouraged in my atheism and my dogmatism, and knowing for certain that Christianity was just for weak-kneed people who just couldn't cope, and I certainly could cope. So I didn't need Christianity; it was just a load of rubbish.
And was that an attitude that came from from people around you as well as your parents, or was that something that was still ingrained from childhood?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I'm sure there was a Christian Union at Liverpool. But I would never have thought of going anywhere near it, and I didn't. One of the things that sort of disturbed me quite a lot was one of the guys that I knocked around with a great deal took his own life, and that just came out of the blue. And I think that was probably the very first time that my certainties in life and arrogance and everything else was challenged, because when you've been having coffee with someone, in lectures with someone, sharing great times with them, and then next thing you hear is that they're dead. And it's not an accident, it's a suicide. And that was, I think the first time I had to question what I was doing, why I was there, what I believed, and all the rest of it. And that may well have been the first glimmer of thinking that maybe things are different from how I saw them.
And how did you make sense of that, or did you just not, or it was just a question asked and left hanging, or did you make some sense of that?
No, I don't think I did. I didn't have the mental capacity or the I didn't have people around me who could guide me through that. I wish I had. I wish I'd love now if I could turn back and say, okay, Christians, explain all this to me and help me through it, but that wasn't the case. One thing I did do, I lived very close to the university buildings on Brownlow Hill, and it was right next to the Catholic Cathedral, which everyone called Paddy's Wigwam. It's this splendid modern building, and oddly enough, I used to love going in there and just sitting there. And it wasn't because I was having a religious experience, it was just something about the building itself. That you could sit in there for hours, no one would disturb you, and there was a real sense of peace and tranquility there, which I didn't ascribe to God. I just thought the architect was amazing.
You've done something, yeah.
And he was, wasn't he?
So then a certain lady came into your life, Tish. Is that right? And she was different from you. Is that how it was, Richard? Or
Yeah, I left Liverpool. I ended up working in London for what was called then the British Oxygen Company, and I bought a house in Clapham Junction. It cost me £6,000.
My goodness, you're worth a lot more than that now, Richard. She kept a hold of that.
It was right on top of Clapham Junction railway station, and every time a train went by, the whole house shook. But I'd been working in Scotland doing personnel management training, and there's another guy called Steve, and he moved in with me as a lodger, and we did a huge amount of work on the house together. It was brilliant to have him, and we would get quite thirsty, so we'd go down to the Roundhouse, which was a pub just at the end of the road, and there were two barmaids there, and we chatted them up. And one was called Pat, and the other one was called Jane. And our first date, I went out with Jane, and Steve went out with Pat. And then the following week, we did a swap.
Oh, that's why I love these interviews. We didn't hear, guys. We didn't know any of this, so this is great.
We didn't swap back. That was where I met my wife to be, and
Amazing.
I used to wind her up terribly. She was extremely naive. We used to order a pint of beer and drink it very quickly, and then put it back on the bar and say, "You've given us an empty pint, a dirty empty pint. There's no beer in it."
Okay, just to save Tish's blushes right now, from this point onwards, she's probably going to come in the door, Richard. She's going to be hammering on the door in a minute. But Tish had a faith at that point, did she?
Her family, her parents were from Ireland, and they were both Roman Catholic. So she was brought up in a Catholic primary school, and then it went to a secondary school. She had a good, strong faith, and it does amaze me that she was in any way interested in somebody who was an atheist and said very rude things about Christianity. But for the reason we stuck. Thank God for that. She has been the major influence in my life in terms of birthing me into Christianity and getting me away from all my hardened atheism and all the rest of it.
So tell us a little bit about that journey then, in terms of, what was the change? What happened, Richard? I suspect you had children and Tish was going to church. Was that the case, or what happened?
Yes. We'd moved up into Baggington Road, and Tish took our very young daughters every Sunday up to St James's on Leamington Road, and I would sit at home in this little room now, which was the office, because we had a business. I ran a whole food business or health food shop, and every Sunday morning I did the accounts. And every Sunday morning something really, really weird happened. I'd be sat there, paying invoices and writing checks and all the rest of it. And Tish and the girls would come down Baggage Road singing. And I thought, this is really weird. Christians go to church and they come back miserable. So
That was your concept. That's what we do. We're miserable when we come back from church.
absolutely, Christians are hopeless people and they're miserable, and this really challenged me. Anyway, she was very clever because she didn't put any pressure on me, but we were coming up to Christmas, and she said, I don't know if you fancy it, but this coming Sunday evening, there's going to be a special Christmas carol concert. Be singing Christmas carols and things like that. Do you fancy coming along? And I said, yeah, okay, I'll be all right. I'll do that. So we went along, and the church was pretty well packed. And there was a woman there called Alicia, and she was dressed up as a shepherd. Had the regulation scarf and the rest of it on her head, and suddenly the entire church was pitch black, and then within a couple of seconds there was a spotlight, and it came right down and shone onto Alicia, and then with a peasant voice she says, "Oh, who me, Lord?"
So who me was that? Yeah.
Who me, Lord? Because his light was shining down her, and she was acknowledging that that this transaction of whatever it was happening.
Yeah.
And as she said that, I just thought, this is real.
Yeah.
I've cried a lot as a Christian, and I cried at that point because suddenly I thought, there's a God. There's a God who cares, and there's a God who loves me. And I've spent my entire life abusing him and ignoring him and being rude about Christianity. But this is real, and this is true. So that I think was the moment where my defences crumbled and cracked. And then some amazing things happened, like Spring Harvest, which was, great big.
Just to say, for those who don't know, it's somebody's got a phone on, I think, somewhere. Anybody? Okay. For those who don't, sorry, I heard it all coming back to me, and it's quite scary. For those who don't know, Spring Harvest is kind of like a festival conference where you can go and hear new music, but also hear preachers, and it's At the moment, they're all suspended because of COVID, but that's what Spring Harvest is. Sorry, Richard, do carry on. Sorry.
So this enormous meeting of about 4,000 to 5,000 Christians down in Minehead in Devon, and we took over the whole campsite, and I had this, how many days it was of going to worship events, listening to world-class preachers. I was just absolutely soaked in Christianity, and it was an eye-opening, amazing, life-transforming experience. And
how long was that after your initial experience in church, Richard?
Probably a year or something like that. I
so you're still quite a new Christian,
still a baby Christian, yes.
Yeah.
But the experience of Spring Harvest was just astonishing. I say the quality of speakers was, you guys are great, but so too were they, and I would find myself sat in a chair, crying my eyes out, because I was hearing amazing stuff, and it was absolutely blowing my mind to think, I could have missed this had it not been for my amazing wife, who at times put up with all sorts of horrible things from me.
Sorry, you should be laughing.
Yeah. And one example of that was, I can't remember what it was about now, but we had the most appalling row. And I thought, I can't stand it. I'm going to go to Birmingham. So I grabbed my bag, my wallet and my jacket, and I set off, and I was heading for the station. And I got about halfway to the station, and God spoke to me. And he said, "Richard, go home."
That's brilliant, Richard.
So I took a deep, deep, deep breath and turned around, and I thought, oh, what's going to happen? And I got home, and it was fantastic. We were just completely reconciled. And again, I thought, isn't God amazing? He knew that it would be okay, and I didn't. And I just, I went home, fear and trembling, thinking, "Oh, we're going to have an enormous fight or what?" But it was brilliant.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because all these different stories we've done are all been different so far. Everyone's life experience is different. And what's so fascinating for you, Richard, was from a place of but a lot of people say, faith, it's because your family have told you about faith, you've become a Christian. And some of our stories have been, people have had faith backgrounds, or they've been connected with church, but your story is, as is other stories of people who go to St. Martin's. There was somebody who was a long way from God, just wasn't interested, and in a way the light kind of got turned on for you, actually physically, and actually literally, and for you, and there was no, in a way, there was no big preacher, there wasn't a big explanation. It was just like God said, "I'm here, Richard." And it wasn't down to anybody else, really. There wasn't an influence of anybody else except that moment. Is that fair to say that, Richard?
Yes, I did get some incredible reinforcement, and I was put on an Alpha course, and then the next time around I was helping on an Alpha course, and we were doing it up at Starkshire Grange, and there was a guy there. I knew him. I knew that he was into all sorts of witchcraft and nasty stuff. And there were three of us stood, one behind him and one in front of him, one at the side, and we were praying for this guy. And after we'd prayed and the bloke had gone, we started talking about what had happened. And I don't know who said it first. He said, I had a sword. I saw this sword. It was dangling above his head, and then one of us said, "I saw a sword, and it was, pointing at his back." And then the third one said, "And I saw a sword, and it was, right at his chest." And we all had this exactly the same vision of this guy who was into all sorts of dark, nasty stuff, and we'd all seen it, and I thought, isn't God amazing that he can affirm belief in that way? So that was, again for me, one of those bricks there that was, you couldn't knock that one out ever.
No, I think you're right, Richard. I think we're often given. Oh, I've got things coming back to me now as well. I think we're often given, especially when we first come to faith, or when we first starting to experience God in a really real way, we're often given those experiences, aren't we? In my experience, that's definitely one of mine, where I can't argue with this because there's two other people have had this same word or same picture, and it's come out of nowhere, and it's really unlikely. But they've had it too, so I can't argue it. So I think you're right. I think we're given those experiences often just to go for God. It's like God saying, I am me, you are hearing from me, which, because otherwise you can start to doubt yourself, can't you? Yeah.
And I don't want to sort of overstate things, but one of the amazing things for me was about church was being accepted, being loved, finding out how generous most people were. There's always a few black sheep, but again, I was taken aback by just so many people were doing so much for other people, and my misunderstanding or crazy beliefs about what church was, again, swept away completely. One of the other things I discovered was that I had a real passion for going knocking on people's doors, and I did it. I was scared. But God said, I want you to do this. And I think the first time I did it, we were giving out Luke's Gospels around Finnan Parish. And I just absolutely loved it. And
You persuaded me to do it as well, Richard, with you just recently as well. We went around praying for people, which was wonderful when we could.
Is, isn't it? And it doesn't matter what their response is. Some people tell you to clear off.
Or words to that effect.
Yes.
Nicest possible way, yes.
And other people say, oh, great, come in, please, and sit down, let's pray and the rest of it. So, and doing it scared is wonderful. It really is, because you don't know from door to door what you're going to get. But whatever you get, you know that God's there and He's going to guide you through it, and you're going to walk away thinking, yeah, that was great.
So Richard,
I've also discovered that I do it scared, but a lot of the I won't name them particularly, but quite a lot of the women that I've done door knocking with from St Martin's, they weren't scared at all. So I've said,
it's only the blokes who are scared.
Oh, we've
really
got some
scary,
feisty women.
No, we think it's wonderful.
So Richard, I know you were. Thank you so much for telling your story. I know you were concerned about tonight. Believe it or not, we've done a half an hour. We've just been chatting. Yeah, we have, and it's been just wonderful. And we're so grateful for you telling your story. We really are. So we just, as we every week we end up with these questions. Abby's got these questions for you. We did pre-warn you a little bit on these, as we end up with just a few quick questions. Abby, over to you.
Okay, so quick fire questions. We're thinking about life in all its fullness. So what's the best day of your life? What would you say was the best day of your life?
Holding my first daughter, Rebecca, in my arms after she'd been delivered.
That's pretty special.
That's a good answer.
So that's a great answer, yeah. Okay, slightly, less momentous, but do you have a favourite day in your week and why?
Friday.
Friday.
That's very definite. Yes.
Almost every Friday morning, I join a Mahaba prayer group. There's anywhere between 4 and 9 of us. We do it by Zoom, of course, at present, and we pray for Muslims around the world. And it's fantastic to think that as we're praying, God will be working into the hearts and minds of Muslims and preparing them for the transition from Islam to Christianity. And that's such a privilege, such a blessing.
Amazing. Okay, now Matt's ready. If you don't have one of these, Matt has been thinking hard. Do you have a favourite life hack? Something that makes life simpler?
I've struggled. I don't think I do. So I'm going to have to pass on that, I think.
Okay, don't worry, Richard. I've got a few.
Matt steps into
because
the breach. Okay.
I know everybody's been enjoying the last couple. Here's a couple. First of all, if you're making a cup of tea with boiling water, you get scum on the top. If you put just a tiny bit of milk in as soon as you poured it on the tea bag, you don't get any scum on the top of your tea. Number one. There we are. I'm going to blow the gaff on the second one, though. If you don't want to do the dishwasher at home anymore, do it consistently badly 3 times. You'll never be asked again. Although now Sandra's heard that. It never worked anyway. So there's a couple of...
I've been washing up and I've never got it.
Your job. Yes, I was about to go to my job every day now.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and then, last one, a bit more serious, this one. Okay, so we're thinking our verse for this year of mission is that I've come that they may have life and life in all its fullness. That's Jesus saying that He's come to give us this full life. So what does living life to the full mean in your daily life, Richard?
Walking the dog. I get a huge joy and pleasure.
Yep.
We've got a 1-year-old fox terrier who's full of energy, full of life, and taking him out is just wonderful. Again, praying is fantastic. What else? I love cycling, so that's good. I can get on my bicycle and cycle around Coventry. Do I need more?
No, that's fine.
That sounds good to me. That sounds amazing to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Just as you've been talking, Richard, I've been trying to. I was tasked. My little task each week is to try and sort of come up with something that kind of holds it all together at the end. And the verse that kept coming to me, which happens in a couple of the Gospels, but that idea of actually, even though you pushed God away for so much of that time and sort of stepped away, and and kind of just put a bit of a brick wall up by your own admission for a long time, actually that God persevered and was just patiently waiting for you. And there's that lovely verse in Matthew 18. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go to look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he's happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that didn't wander off. So I just thought your story is such a lovely story of God going to find that one sheep and the sheep finding him too.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you, Abby, and thank you so much, Richard. I don't know if you can see some of the comments. People are so appreciative of your story. Can I just encourage people who've been watching this tonight, share it with your friends, let them hear these stories of faith and hope, particularly in these difficult and dark times. It's so important to share them. And don't forget to share your own stories. Don't leave it to other people. Share your own stories on the telephone, just in conversation. Maybe you've got that one-to-one walk in the park. And if you get a moment, you need to listen to where people are, but also opportunity to say, do you know, Jesus made a difference to my life, as it's so obvious has to Richard, and I can hear his dog in the background saying, can I have a walk? So
I heard the W word, Dad.
So we just want to sign off really and say thank you so much for Richard tonight and for joining us, and just to say, as we've been saying each week, for everyone who's listening, who's and watching in these days, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace. Good night before the dog takes over. Take care. Bye bye.
I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Bless you.
Oh, thanks, Richard.